In 2008, Michael Burry famously profited from the collapse of the United States housing market by betting against the subprime mortgage market using credit default swaps. He is known for this prediction, which was detailed in the book and movie The Big Short. As the housing market crisis unfolded in 2008, his hedge fund, Scion Capital, carried hundreds of millions of dollars for investors and himself. The bet, Burry took out credit default swaps, which are like insurance policies, on mortgage backed securities that he believed were built on junk subprime loans. The outcome? When the housing market crashed and homeowners defaulting on their mortgages surged, the value of these credit default swaps increased dramatically. The profit? His fund made approximately $725 million for investors, with Burry personally earning around $100 million. The legacy? This successful and contrarian bet established his reputation as a highly successful investor, leading to his portrayal in the book and film The Big Short. Michael Burry's short position on the housing market preceded the 2008 financial crisis and the Great Recession, which led to significant increases in family homelessness and housing stability across the United States. The impact of the financial crisis, the housing market crash that followed Michael Burry's bets around 2007 and 2008 triggered a major economic downturn that directly impacted the country's housing stability, such as increased homelessness. The crisis led to a sharp rise in the number of families experiencing homelessness. For example, between late 2007 and late 2008, New York City saw a 40% jump in families entering homeless shelters. Massachusetts, a 32% increase, and Los Angeles County, a 12% increase. Why? This sounds like a lot like a caste system. Is this Make America Great Again? Foreclosures and job losses. Nearly 9 million people lost their jobs, and at least 10 million Americans lost their homes to foreclosure during and immediately after the 2008 financial crisis. Renters in foreclosed properties were also highly vulnerable, with about 40% of families facing eviction due to foreclosure. The housing instability. The lack of affordable housing was identified as a primary driver. Even before the crash, many extremely low income individuals were spending more than half their income on rent, leaving them with no safety net when the recession hit. The government response. In response to the growing crisis, the government implemented programs like the Homelessness Prevention and Rapid Rehousing Program in 2009. This program was credited with preventing or ending homelessness for 1.3 million people, suggesting that policy intervention helped mitigate a potentially worse outcome. Since then, the housing market has never stabilized. During the 2025 government shutdown, Burry announced he was utilizing the same tools to short the AI market. He predicted the implementation of artificial intelligence has no substance, and the technology to support it simply doesn't exist. He accurately describes a failing industry. Faulty and fraudulent market trends support AI, and Burry seeks to bet against those junky trends. His hedge fund, Scion Asset Management, invested in put options, a form of a short bet, with a combined national value approximately $1.1 billion against AI-related companies, NVIDIA, and Palantir. The government shutdown was a financial reset. and he saw the manipulation of the market, thinking he could short it like he did before. His announcement to short Nvidia and Palantir and AI in general was the signal the government needed in order to rearrange the deck chairs and open back up again. Double down on investing into this house of cards that is AI, pull a switcheroo and actually short Michael Burry. Burry announced the same day the government shutdown ended that he was closing his fund, Scion Asset Management, not because he was wrong about the instability of a false market, because he can't win against the House, specifically the White House. With David Sachs installed as the AI czar, he is the mouthpiece for his bestie, Peter Thiel. When you've got an industry being manipulated and funded almost entirely by the US government, leaning on taxpayers to fuel it to go, you can't win. While Burry takes his cue and exits stage left, the US government continues to rearrange the deck chairs and begins the hunt on American citizens. The Great Recession of 2008 is going to look like a cakewalk, and no one wins except a few Silicon Valley billionaires. What we can expect in the future is a rise of the homeless population, junk financial tools based on fraud to circumvent defaulting mortgages, and an open door policy to fast tracking immigrant and undocumented workers, especially in the professional sector. To occupy American homes and make up the difference. In the meantime, the corporations that run AI, especially Amazon Web Services or AWS, which provides a comprehensive suite of services for artificial intelligence, offering everything from pre-trained AI services for immediate use to the infrastructure and tools needed to build, train, and deploy custom models, are overwhelming local power grids. These services claim they empower businesses to integrate AI into applications for tasks like data analysis, customer engagement, personalized recommendations, and generative AI content creation. But really, what it is a financialization of Americans. Each American's electricity and energy bill has increased approximately 40 to 60% as a result of these services. You happy with paying your outrageous electric bill so Amazon can run AI? Undergoing another move toward financially and psychologically resetting the country, we can expect an uptick in power dynamics. Narcissistic personality disorders, from the micro to the macro, will dictate your every move. Your response to this will probably not be sufficient enough for your survival. You will be flattened. You will be emotionally and artistically and spiritually compressed. Even your spiritual safe havens like churches are compromised. You may have to operate a space of extreme selfishness and undergo a radical shift into accepting the dark aspects of your own personality in order to survive the financial, psychological, and physical toll this shift into a malignant space will take. The entire justice system will be designed to criminalize you and financialize you in ways that leave you bereft of hope or freedom. Your family will turn on you, sucking the lifeblood out of you, using you for supply, and tossing you aside like a discarded carcass once they get what they want from you. Neighbors will turn against you for petty opinions, getting the police involved, and attempting to destroy your life over perceived offenses not based in reality. Just like we saw with COVID, a culling of the elderly or the most vulnerable in our population will continue to take place, replacing unity with hostile treatment, where they are tossed aside like garbage and forgotten, their assets picked over by friendly vultures or even strangers to you. And if you describe any of this, you will be attacked, silenced, fined, jailed, and treated as a pariah in the community. It was announced this week that Jeffrey Epstein referenced Donald Trump in emails to his associate Ghislaine Maxwell, and a journalist claiming that Trump knew about the girls, according to emails released by House Democrats. But rather than focus on the content of this story, Trump's diehard supporters will mock the story, defend Trump, and vehemently deny any truth to it. This story was launched within one day of ending the government shutdown in order to begin the process of undermining Trump, field the idea of impeachment, and warm everyone up to the idea of a J.D. Vance presidency who is Peter Thiel's puppet. In 2013, TechCrunch published an article titled Geeks for Monarchy, revealing that the mysterious blogger known as Mencius Moldbug was actually Curtis Yarvin, at the time a 40-year-old software developer based in San Francisco. Alongside his political writings about reshaping American government, Yarvin was also developing a new computer operating system, something he imagined as a kind of digital republic. To pursue this vision, he founded a company called Tilon, inspired by Jorge Luis Borges' story Chilon Ukbar Orbis Tertius, which describes a secret group that invents a fictional world so detailed it begins to replace the real one. Yarvin attracted interest from prominent Silicon Valley investors who shared his appetite for re engineering social systems. His startup received backing from venture capital giants Andreessen Horowitz and Founders Fund, the latter founded by billionaire Peter Thiel. Both Thiel and Balaji Srinivasan, then a general partner at Andreessen Horowitz, became acquainted with Yarvin after following his blog. Still, leaked emails later showed that neither was eager to be publicly connected to him. In one 2014 message, Thiel expressed unease about the association, joking that critics on the left were too ideologically blinkered to notice any real conspiracies, even if hit over the head with one. Yarvin's writings, especially his open letter, showed little sympathy for ordinary democracy, but argued that popular support could still be useful. He claimed that genuine change required both thinkers and followers, citing the collapse of communism as the result, not of dissident intellectuals alone, but of their alignment with public unrest. The internet, he suggested was the perfect place to find this modern crowd. Soon, links to his blog, Unqualified Reservations, circulated among libertarian technologists, disillusioned bureaucrats, and self identified rationalists. These readers would help seed what became known as the neo reactionary or dark enlightenment movement. While few of them endorsed Yarvin's monarchist ideas outright, many shared his rejection of liberal optimism during the Obama years. One of his most lasting cultural contributions was the popularization of the phrase red pill, borrowed from the Matrix, which became shorthand within online subcultures for awakening to unsettling political, quote, truths. So every time you brag about being red pilled, you're channeling one of the most deplorable antisocial incels on the planet, who couldn't even get funding without another human hater, the CIA operative Peter Thiel, to throw him some seed money just to get him to shut the fuck up. By the way, Thiel created J.D. Vance in his own image. As mentioned, Peter Thiel created J.D. Vance in his own image. Also, Thiel sat beside Trump during the COVID operation at just about every meeting and dictated how this would go, a fast descent into a technological system that tracked our health data and psychologically raped us until we were puddles of obedience. And it was Peter Thiel, Elon Musk, Doge, and David Sachs that handed all of our personal data over to Palantir, Thiel's surveillance company. Thiel has openly demonstrated multiple times and announced repeatedly a deep hatred for humanity, and the billions of dollars in CIA-backed and DoD-backed and health agency-backed programs that support his company Palantir rally with thunderous applause and staunch solidarity with this demented opinion. You are now being governed by entire systems in every agency that have openly admitted their hatred of you. You are prey to a system designed and controlled by predators. When you are the prey, your fight or flight response to being prey overwhelms your emotional systems, and yet you don't recognize it. You're too busy with life's immediate emergencies to make room for it, or too distracted to examine it. you don't understand it, and you deny it. This is all normal because our human capacity for acknowledging pain is very, very limited. But I think you've become so accustomed to being prey, you're in a permanent state of Stockholm syndrome. This makes you dangerous to individuals who interact with you. It makes you uneven, unstable, and untrustworthy, and totally unaware. And of course, when I say you, I don't mean you specifically, but I think of the collective you as a whole. You cannot survive the onset of this malignantly designed system that has no functionality except to extort you, exploit you, and hunt you, and leave you to suffer your corpse and die. Why do you think the story of Milan prosecutors investigating alleged sniper tourism during the Bosnian War is trending now? Italians allegedly paid members of the Bosnian Serb army for trips to Sarajevo so that they could kill citizens during the 4-year siege of the city in the 1990s. They took advantage of a beleaguered and rampaged people and found sport. More than 10,000 people were killed in Sarajevo by constant shelling and sniper fire between 1992 and 1996 in what was the longest siege in modern history. After Bosnia and Herzegovina declared independence from Yugoslavia. The tourist snipers were perhaps the most feared element of life under siege in Sarajevo because they would pick off people on the streets, including children, at random as if it was a video game or a safari. We are talking about wealthy people with reputations, businessmen, who during the siege of Sarajevo paid to kill unarmed citizens. They left their posh and lovely life in Trieste for a manhunt, and then once they satisfied their human hunting sport, returned to their respectable daily lives as if they just returned from a holiday. And now, years later, under Trump, your savior to it all is nothing more than a continuous, long-standing language of gaslighting. The Gulf of Mexico first appeared on a world map in 1550 and a historical account in 1552. As with other large bodies of water, Europeans named the Gulf after Mexico, land of the Mexica, because mariners needed to cross the Gulf to reach that destination. This name has been the most common name since the mid 17th century, when it was still considered a Spanish sea. French Jesuits used this name as early as 1672. In the 18th century, Spanish Admiralty charts similarly labeled the Gulf as Mexican Cove or Mexican Sound. Until the Republic of Texas broke away from Mexico in 1836, Mexico's coastal boundary extended eastward along the Gulf to present day Louisiana. Although there is no formal protocol on the general naming of international waters, Gulf of Mexico is officially recognized by the International Hydrographic Organization, which seeks to standardize the names of international maritime features for certain purposes and counts all 3 countries adjacent to the Gulf as member states. But in a January 2025 executive order, United States President Donald Trump directed federal agencies to adopt the name Gulf of America for the waters bounded by the U.S. The reason for this executive order was not based in industry needs or maritime trade law. It was entirely based on a marketing phrase to support his current America First administration. Because when you look on your GPS or mapping systems and see Gulf of America on your devices or your car, you attach this false psychological trick into a diluted feedback loop, a distortion of reality that wants to erase hundreds of years of mapping. That somehow, despite the fact that other countries are surpassing us in every way social, technological, economic, and infrastructure. You allow yourself to be gaslit into believing America is first on the world stage as a result of a sick rebranding of a body of water that has been recognized as the Gulf of Mexico for almost 500 years. This January 2025 executive order is not only colonizing your mind, but it's an attempt to erase world history. We saw glimpses of this behavior in the early Trump campaigns when he was established as the lightning rod to gaslight America into the unconscious babble of Make America Great Again. And then with his second America First administration, Teal, along with Bestie, David Sachs, and a cadre of Silicon Valley tech billionaires, set him up to take the fall by allowing the Epstein story to trend just as the government opened and begin the hunt again, picking off your calcified brain and essence of life, targeting and picking apart your body, not for profit, but for sport. You cannot survive this new sick paradigm. This is why the story of the massive G5 geomagnetic solar storm reaching Earth right now, allegedly at the highest intensity level ever recorded, is trending across your newsfeed. It's a metaphor for the gaslighting and narcissistic comet that is crushing your existence and will continue to compress you into pulp. The auroras that have amazed millions are nothing more than cheap carnival tricks. Blaming a geomagnetic storm for causing the vulnerability of modern technology is naive and stupid. The claim that certain airlines temporarily rerouted polar lights to minimize radiation exposure is an insult to your intelligence and your mind. Several satellites face communication and navigation disruptions on Earth because they are cheaply made props floating around Earth's atmosphere, not because of a once in a lifetime geomagnetic event. The failures of transformers on power grids across our country is because Amazon Web Services is overwhelming those power grids to maximum capacity, not because of a geomagnetic storm that makes your sky a pretty purple hue. When the world turns dark and when you're captivated by the false light within its shadows, you may be blind to that false light. To believe in goodness or light where there is none is naive. You have to integrate into the real darkness and disappear into it. To shine a light would be a death sentence in this new distortion of reality. You can't quote the law. The law is scoffed at in the face of greed. The desire to be right as opposed to doing right, as opposed to doing what is right, has replaced the ethics that the law is bound to. Let me read that again. You can't quote the law. The law is scoffed at in the face of greed. The desire to be right, as opposed to doing what is right, has replaced the ethics that the law is bound to. Your only chance of survival is to become the darkness. I had a dream, which was not all a dream. The bright sun was extinguished, and the stars did wander darkling in the eternal space, rayless and pathless, and the icy earth swung blind and blackening in the moonless air. Morn came and came and brought no day, and men forgot their passions in the dread of this their desolation, and all hearts were chilled into a selfish prayer for light. And they did live by watchfires and the thrones, the palaces of crowned kings, the huts, the habitations of all things which dwell, were burnt for beacons. Cities were consumed, and men were gathered round their blazing homes to look once more into each other's face. Happy were those who dwelt within the eye of the volcanoes and their mountain torch. A fearful hope was all the world contained. Forests were set on fire, but hour by hour they fell and faded, and the crackling trunks extinguished with a crash, and all was black. The brows of men by the despairing light wore an unearthly aspect, as by fits. The flashes felt upon them. Some lay down and hid their eyes and wept, and some did rest their chins upon their clenched hands and smiled, and others hurried to and fro and fed their funeral piles with fuel, and looked up with mad disquietude on the dull sky, the pall of a past world, and then again with curses cast them down upon the dust, and gnashed their teeth and howled. The wild birds shrieked, and terrified did flutter on the ground and flap their useless wings. The wildest brutes came tame and tremulous, and vipers crawled and twined themselves among the multitude. Hissing but stingless, they were slain for food. And war, which for a moment was no more, did glut itself again. A meal was bought with blood, and each sat sullenly apart, gorging himself in gloom. No love was left. All earth was but one thought, and that was death, immediate and inglorious. And the pang of famine fed upon all entrails. Men died, and their bones were tombless as their flesh. The meager by the meager were devoured. Even dogs assailed their masters, all save one, and he was faithful to a course, and kept the birds and beasts and famished men at bay. The hunger clung them, or the dropping dead lured the lank jaws. Himself sought out no food, but with a piteous and perpetual moan, and a quick desolate cry, licking the hand which answered not, with a caress he died. The crowd was famished by degrees, but two of an enormous city did survive, and they were enemies. They met beside the dying embers of an altar place where had been heaped a mass of holy things for an unholy usage. They raked up and shivering scraped with their cold skeleton hands the feeble ashes in their feeble breath, blew for a little life, and made a flame which was a mockery. Then they lifted up their eyes as it grew lighter and beheld each other's aspects, saw and shrieked, and died. Even of their mutual hideousness, they died, unknowing who he was upon whose brow famine had written fiend. The world was void. The populace and the powerful was a lump, seasonless, herbless, treeless, manless, lifeless, a lump of death, a chaos of hard clay. The rivers, lakes, and ocean all stood still, and nothing stirred within their silent depths. Ships, sailorless, lay rotting on the sea, and their masts fell down piecemeal as they dropped. They slept on the abyss without a surge. The waves were dead, the tides were in their grave, the moon, their mistress, had expired before. The winds were withered in the stagnant air, and the clouds perished. Darkness had no need of aid from them. She was the universe. That was Darkness, a poem written by what some consider the most flamboyant and notorious of the major English Romantic poets, George Gordon, also known as Lord Byron.
You can help us continue our work by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Book of Hours, or leave us a one-time donation at paypal.me/Book of Hours. Or you can use Cash App. Thank you.